3-point perspective. So I'm going to explain 3-point perspective. And so what I did first was I just drew out a box in 2-point perspective. So we have what amounts to a correctly drawn 2-point perspective box. We have the one vanishing point here on our horizon, which is on the page. The other vanishing point is off the page, and it's on the horizon. Now, 3-point perspective governs your verticals. So what I want to do here is show you guys a block. So if you're trying to draw a block in 2-point perspective, you can see the top. This corner is closer to you than either of the other ones, so you know that it's a 2-point perspective problem. And you know, your eye level is not that far away from it. If you move it up a little higher, you know, for this box anyway, and for the camera, that's where your eye level is. But as we move down, well, what happens if we keep moving down? And I'll be off camera if I do that. So what I'm going to do is turn the box this way and say, okay, so in 2-point perspective, what we do is we say that this corner is closer, so that when that corner shows up in the drawing, these parallel lines are going to converge and show us that this span here, even though it's equal in real terms, it looks smaller to us because of where we are. So if we take our verticals and we're looking down at, like, way more down at the box, what happens is that this corner is now closer than this one, as well as being closer. So 3-point perspective is a more detailed way to bring the idea of you are in a specific place and everything in the world is moving away from you. Okay? So the third point is going to be either at your feet or above you, depending on where you're looking. So I'm going to leave this 2-point perspective box alone, and I'll show you how to do the same thing in 3-point. So if I'm just drawing a box and I decide that this is my front corner in 2-point perspective, so let's leave it about there. But it's going to be useful to have this. Eventually we're going to need this going all the way straight down. Now in 3-point perspective, your points are really, the third point is really not going to be on the page. But what we do is proceed like we normally would for a 2-point perspective box. So let's see, I'm going to use that point right there. No, I'm not going to make it. Okay, so let's see. That's the close one. No, let's have that be the close one. Let's do that. Okay, so we have our 2 planes worked out. Now, all we do is the verticals are going to point towards, they're going to converge on a point at our feet. Because if you look down, I know you can't tell, but I'm looking down right now. If you look down, that's where your vanishing point is. So if we decide that our box is going to be, that's where our verticals are going to go, instead of going straight down and parallel to this one, we just tilt them in a little. And always draw them out, just like we always do. And that's curving a little bit. Let's try and tighten it up. Now we want both of them to converge on that same point. And this is further away, so it's got to come in a little bit more. All right, so those are our verticals. And now we just like in 2-point perspective, we go back to the same vanishing point. That's 3-point perspective. It's no more complicated than that. 3-point, a lot of times people make 3-point perspective out to be this exponentially more complex drawing problem, and it isn't. I mean, it can get pretty crazy if you want it to, but it's just a slightly more accurate way to deal with these problems. And what you'll find is that if you really look closely, this is what happens every time. Like, this is a really, I mean, they're all abstractions, but this is like an idealized abstraction with vertical verticals. But the only vertical is the one that's directly in front of you. If we have a bunch of boxes on the table, all of them are going to go to the same vanishing point. So these two are in different universes right now. And don't make the mistake of having one box have vertical verticals and the other one have 3-point perspective verticals. That's never going to happen in real life. But you have to have a very, very high eye level in order to really pick this up. This is kind of an exaggeration. So just work that out, try and make sense of it. It's just a mechanical thing. And as far as the still life drawings that you might be making, you're mostly not even going to notice 3-point perspective. But we need to put it in because it is a thing, and you need to know that it's there. This part only goes for about 40 seconds. And what I want to talk about is the 3-point perspective that I used in this demo was exaggerated so that you guys could see the effect. But in reality, when you guys are doing a still life or something, the degree to which you're going to observe your verticals tilting is going to be even more subtle than this. So you can see how, as I go through these next boxes, I'm trying to stay consistent with the vertical 3rd point that I set up. You can see how awkward things get as soon as I move off that center line. And that's okay. It's what happens. So to round out the discussion of 3-point perspective, I have something different this time. So this is a painting that I made last summer, and it's really dependent on getting the perspective right, because this thing is so huge that an adult standing here is actually only about that tall. So if you're down here, our eye level, I determined that my eye level was the bottom of the door. So I started just drawing this, and I kept getting my lines that go up, my verticals, wrong. And I found that my 2-point perspective lines were okay, but my verticals kept getting messed up. So what I did is, instead of having a giant piece of paper that allows me to work out where the lines are going to go, what I did was I clipped some wood to the easel, and I worked out exactly where my vanishing points were. So here I want to show you this. So this is for 2-point perspective. You can see over here, these blocks are stacked up to be the same height as the bottom of the door, and I have a string. So if we drag the string across, there's our horizontal, that's our eye level. And now if we start moving the string stays in the same spot. The string is stuck at the vanishing point. So we pull this up and we start looking every symmetrical aspect, every angle that goes back in space is lined up perfectly just based on this one string. So while I was painting this, I actually had this string hooked up, and if I started to get off of my angle, I could use it to get back on. And then the next part of this is going to be looking up, because 3-point has to do with your verticals. So I'm going to angle the camera up. So you can see the very, very top piece of that wood. That's my vanishing point for 3-point perspective looking up. So now that we're back on the painting, my vertical in the painting was this green stripe right here. So I was using that to line everything up, and you can see it's pretty good vertical. And now if we take some of the angles, I can't see if it's lining up for you or not. It's very close if it's not. But we can move that through any of these areas, and we can get a correct angle. And this is the same thing as having your vanishing points on the page, but in my case I just had a piece of copper here that I needed to make sure my angles were right on. So hopefully that illustration helps a little bit.